Do you have a suggestion for a Rockstar Impact Podcast guest? Go to impactpodcast.com and just click Be a Guest to recommend someone today. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shigarian. I'm so honored to have with us today Chris Wolfe. He's a Senior Director of Environmental Sustainability at Bimbo Bakeries USA. Chris, welcome to the Impact Podcast.
Awesome. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. And, we've never covered this sector of bakery and baked products like this before. And it's so wonderful to start right at the top with you at the pinnacle of the industry. But before we get talking about all the important and impactful things you're doing in sustainability at Bimbo Bakeries USA, I'd first like you to share the Chris Wolfe story. How did you get on this journey and how did you get inspired to make such a difference in your career?
That's a great question. So I grew up, I still live in Pennsylvania, in central Pennsylvania. Went to a small liberal arts school, Susquehanna University in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. And was like a lot of folks, had to find a place to work to help pay for some of the cost. And one of the premier places to work was a local bakery called Buttercrust Baking Company. And I was blessed to get hired there as a summer helper. And then over time, it turned into an internship in environmental and safety. And then they actually offered me a full-time job. So I don't know if I found them, they found me. So that's how I got into the industry. They were bought out eventually by Sara Lee. And I held a couple different positions in both those organizations. And then in 2011, Bimbo Bakeries bought SaraLee, and that's how I got to Bimbo. So it's been a great ride. The interesting part about the whole arc is, I started with a family-owned bakery, and now I'm back with a family-owned bakery, which is a much bigger company, of course.
Right.
But a lot of the traits that we had, 30 years ago are still there. We're very, very fortunate to work for a family-owned company that's very passionate in my area of expertise, which is the sustainability area and environmental. And I always say it's the right time and I'm working for the right company as far as sustainability goes. So that's kind of a quick summary of Chris Wolfe.
That's a great summary. And growing up in Pennsylvania, and I grew up in New York City, but I got to spend a lot of time in Pennsylvania in my youth because I was in the racehorse industry. So we used to race horses at what was then Liberty Bell Racetrack, Pocono Downs, and many other parts of Pennsylvania, which, I just had some of my greatest parts of my life I spent there. When you were growing up in central Pennsylvania, was sustainability a thing? Was there both traditionally speaking in terms of your schooling and also home life, was sustainability part of the culture there yet, or this is something that was part of your more career journey rather than your educational journey or growing up in Pennsylvania specifically?
Well, I wouldn't say the term sustainability was there, but I think it was embedded. I came from a rural part of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So I think farmers in general have always tried to be sustainable, try to to be as efficient as possible. Earlier on in my journey in buttercrust baking, the owner pointed out waste, and waste elimination was the key. And just from, material cost, electric, natural gas, and so forth. So were we calling it sustainability back then? No, but we were doing it.
Right.
We're and then the other side from a financial standpoint, we're a low margin business. So we have to protect our bottom line. So, I mean, if you can reduce and make your yield more efficient, if your water usage, your natural gas, your electric, and so forth, we're doing it for financial reasons, at least when I started. But if you look at it now from the lens of sustainability, I mean, it goes hand in hand. So again, was it, again, your direct question? I think it was part of it just because of where I grew up.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't called sustainability.
Right.
But it was there.
Right.
And recycling was just starting. I would say it was more environmental compliance in the early days.
Right.
And it's had a career arc to where it is today.
That's so interesting. Like you said, we were doing it, but it wasn't called sustainability. And your point about resiliency and profit margin, it's so fascinating because obviously you're a sustainability OG. You've been doing this a long time, even though you're still a relatively young man. What's fascinating, Chris, is back in 2007 when I started this show, and there was very few chief sustainability officers even then, though. Like you said, some companies were doing it. But again, it hadn't been a codified sector that had been named and everything else with titles and things of that such. But when the C-suite back in 2007, 8, 9 used to hear the word sustainability, they used to think that, well, oh man, this is going to cost me more money. There was no thinking the opposite, which was really a disavowalment. And really the truth is what you said. Sustainability really can just equal resiliency, and it could create more margins if done correctly.
Right. And from our standpoint, we can. It's a competitive advantage for Bimbo. Now we're doing it because it's our obligation.
Right.
We're the largest baker in the world. We make food. So a lot of the things that roll up under sustainability, and it used to be it was only environmental focused. I mean, now we look at the product areas. We look at how do we treat our people. I mean, that's a big one too. Is 100%. You got to treat your people the right way. They're our greatest asset. And then you throw in the planet area. And if you look at our purpose, it's called Nourishing a Better World. So we have, it's called Bake for You, which is our product area, Bake for Life, which is the people area, and then Bake for Nature is the planet area, which is where my team mainly focuses in. But there's lots of overlaps in there. So as this journey's expanded, where it used to be compliance related, recycling related, energy related. Now it goes across your entire value chain. And that's not unique to Bimbo. That's unique to most consumer goods packaging companies today.
True. It's so fascinating what you said. It's sustainability could have been, and historically could have been, like you said, read so narrowly on an EH&S basis, but now the breadth of it, when done right, is all across the whole organization. Chris, just as a little bit of history and also to share with our listeners and viewers to hear about, you represent, as the Senior Director of Environmental Sustainability, the largest bakery in the world. Let's talk about Bimbo size to start with. Let's talk about what, 35 countries you're in and 20,000+ employees?
That's correct.
Let's just talk about some of your amazing brands. I mean, I'm 61 years old. I grew up in Manhattan with Entenmann's and Sara Lee and Thomas and Oro Wheat. And don't you make the products also for the iconic and amazing Cheesecake Factory as well?
Yes, we do. We do. Yeah.
Hoppers.
You did your homework.
Hey,
you did your homework. Yeah.
What do you think? I'm going in the ring with a heavyweight champion and kind of, not train a little bit? Come on, Chris.
I mean, and my marketing folks would get a little upset. So just speaking of the US, I think we have 7 brands that are over $1 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're iconic. They're iconic brands to your point. I mean, most folks, I think our household penetration is well over 80%. So the listeners out there, I guarantee you that if you go to your cupboard, you got one of our products in there, if not more.
I guarantee it. And we all grew up. These are the comfort brands of my generation and of my children's generation. These are amazing brands. And I'll tell you what, I don't know anyone who goes to the Cheesecake Factory and doesn't love the products that are there and come away with a big smile on their face. Chris, let's get into it a little bit. And first of all, for our listeners and viewers to find Chris and all of his colleagues and the important and impactful work they're doing in sustainability, please go to www.bimbobakeriesUSA.com. bimbobakeriesUSA.com. Talk a little bit about, Bimbo's Bakeries sustainability goals. I mean, like you said, you started at a small family-run bakery, got acquired by the amazing brand Sara Lee, and then that got acquired by Bimbo, and now you're working for the largest family-owned, the largest bakery in the world, owned by a family as well. Talk a little bit about your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter, year-to-year sustainability goals and ambitions at Bimbo Bakeries on a macro basis.
Yeah, so first I want to just emphasize, so we're family owned. Srivice family are very passionate about sustainability. It's been in our philosophy since day one. Philosophy is to build a sustainable, highly productive and deeply humane company. So it's been there since I think it was 1945.
Wow.
So the fact that our senior leadership team supports it makes my job, the rest of the team. And again, I'm kind of like the spokesperson. I'm blessed. I have a fantastic team that works for me. We get all the support that we need across the value chain to get a lot of the milestones that we get to talk about happen. So if you look at where we're headed, again, I talked about nourishing a better world. Again, that's the purpose. Baked for you, baked for life. So again, baked for you is the product area. Baked for life is the people area. And I want to emphasize they're extremely important. I'm going to focus more for Baked for Nature, which is the planet area, because that's what my team directly leads and supports. So I'm going to kind of tailor the messaging towards that. And then John, maybe later on, if you want to do another podcast specific to Baked for You or Baked for Life, I can connect you with the right people.
We would, first of all, the answer is yes, because brands like yours are so important and impactful and doing so many things. It's impossible to fit it all into one podcast, number one. Number two, love to hear about the different divisions so people can understand the interconnectedness of Bake for You, Bake for Life, Bake for Nature, and of nourishing a better world. All very important stuff. So I would really appreciate that. So many brands keep coming back on the show because, as you and I know, Chris, sustainability has no finish line. It's a journey. And so that's really that's where we come from, and it's important. Before we get going, though, I love what's your background here. Win with passion, potential. Win big with passion, potential, purpose. Talk a little bit about that. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to Bimbo Bakeries?
Again, that's our DNA. So Tony Gavin's been our president now for about 2 years now. We kind of refreshed some things. Fred Penny, his predecessor, was very supportive of our initiatives. Tony's taken it, continued the mantle. So again, he's our leader at the BBU level, Bimbo Bakeries USA. So we rolled that out about 2 years. That's who we want to be as we go forward as we're leaders. So yeah, it's the background. It's a nice little caption back there.
I love it.
And it dovetails into what we're doing as far as this nourishing a better world. So you kind of asked me the question of where we're headed.
Yep.
So if you looked at, again, what we call Baked for Nature. So if you're looking at the planet area, really we boil it down into 3 areas. So we look at emissions. So ultimately, we want to be zero emissions by 2050. Now, is that an easy lift? No, it's not an easy lift. And we can unpack that here as we go forward, but that's the first tenet is what are we doing to reduce our emissions? So 2050 is zero carbon emissions, but the next biggest milestone is 2030. We want to reduce our thermal emissions, so that's like natural gas and fuels that we burn in our fleet by 50% for scope 1. Scope 3, which is kind of outside of our control. That's tied to our suppliers. That's 28% reduction by 2030. But I have some good news that we've done is Scope 2, which is on the electric front.
Sure.
Our company in the U.S., and we're well over 90 as Grupo Bimbo, but in the U.S. we're 101% matched for all our electric. So you might say, how did you get here?
Yeah, let's unpack what that means so our listeners can understand that.
Yeah. So our journey in 2019, we partnered with Invenergy on a wind farm in West Texas.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a virtual purchase power agreement. It's backed by the EPA. So at that time, it was 100 megawatts, and that covered all of our operations. And when I say all of our operations, it was manufacturing, it was sales, it was the office staff, everything. Now we've grown since then.
Right.
So then what we do is we do on-site renewables, which if you Google us, you're going to see that every one of our facilities in California now has a microgrid, which is a percentage of solar and coupled with batteries. So we have the wind farm, which is, again, a VPPA.
Right.
We have on-site renewables, and then we go out and we buy renewable energy credits. And we procure it enough and we generate it enough on-site that based on 2023, we're 101% matched. And that was a commitment we made through RE100 at the GB level. And again, in the US, we're already there. So that's what they call Scope 2 emissions.
Right.
So again, we started this. Okay, so we have the carbon, which is what I just covered.
Right.
The next big one is waste. And if you kind of go back to my beginning, is waste has always been there. Right. I mean, we've always looked at waste. And we're going to continue to look at waste. I mean, that is technically the definition of sustainability, is the relentless pursuit of waste elimination. Was taught that many, many years ago, carries through to today. It's very practical. So that's in the classical waste sense. So we're always trying to be efficient in our operations as far as the amount of food waste we generate. And then on the sales side is trying to reduce the amount of returns that come back off the store shelves. So that's the waste activities. That also includes packaging. Packaging is part of that number. In the fall of 2023, we were the first manufacturer in North America to produce a post-consumer recyclable package. That's through our Arnold brand for organics. 30% of that package is from PCR. So, John, you're probably saying, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Essentially, so if I recycle a milk carton at my home, that plastic eventually gets grinded down, reprocessed, and then that gets made into a bread bag. And it's at 30% levels. Wow. So that's the packaging front. So we're continuously trying to look at ways on the packaging. We're trying to get to 100% recyclable or compostable for our packaging. We're just about at 90% in the U.S., so we're getting there. We're close. And then water's part of that too. I mean, water's a big thing. So we continually look at, and this is all bucketed under what we call waste.
Yes.
So again, emissions and waste. Yeah. Yep.
And now let's talk, you mentioned food. So now, so food is both the food waste that's a byproduct of the manufacturing process, but also food waste is based upon the returns that come back.
Right. Yep.
Has technology improved during the last, let's just call 5 to 8 years?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So are you able to turn those food products that are no longer suitable for shelf anymore into another product, such as compost or like that is used for fertilizer or other things?
Yeah. So again, the first thing to do with waste is you don't create the waste. Right. So that's our first model.
Right.
It's not to create the waste.
Right.
But if it becomes a waste, so the first thing we try to do is we try to get that to people in need.
Got it.
So if it's safe to consume,
got it.
And whether it's something happened at the bakery or if it's returns, we have a big program with Feeding America.
Oh.
So well over 20 million pounds were donated last year.
Wow.
Yeah. So the first thing we try to do is leverage food banks, get that food to people in need.
Beautiful. Wonderful.
And then if that doesn't work out, then it goes to animal feed.
Got it.
And then the last resort would be we either incinerate it or it goes to a landfill.
Understood.
But again, we try to avoid that as much as possible. But we're really proud of the partnership we have with Feeding America as far as getting those products in people in need.
That is really wonderful. You mentioned earlier on the emission side, obviously the big audacious goal of net zero by 2050. Obviously, along the way, they stepping stones as of in 2030. When it comes to waste reduction and elimination, hopefully, and sometimes diversion, what's your goals there in the years ahead? How benchmarking yourself there?
Yeah, so from food waste perspective, it's a 50% reduction from baseline 2019 by 2030.
Wow.
It's pretty aggressive.
11 years. Wow.
Yeah, we align with the United Nations programs that they have out there. And again, it's a we're a food manufacturer. We don't want our food being wasted.
Right.
So it's 50%. And we're making progress on it, but that's the journey as far as that from a target standpoint.
Got it. And then what's the third pillar of
the third one is regenerative agriculture, which I watched your podcast from a couple months ago, which I think you talked about. Was that General Mills?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So the last one is regenerative agriculture. So again, the old standard was sustainable agriculture, where you wanted to maintain the levels. Now we're trying to work with our suppliers, with the farmers, to enhance the soil conditions.
Right.
Because depending on who scientifically who you look at, where the bulk of our main ingredient is wheat. So for most of our products, so where's it come from? It comes from the center part of the state, from the U.S. Into Canada. And, depending on what you look at, it could be as little as 50 soil seasons left if we don't take action. So, again, it's our obligation. We want to lead. That's the other big thing about Bimbo is we're the leaders, and we're going to continue to be the leaders. So we're going to partner with our suppliers to work on a sustainable agriculture to enhance the soil conditions. So that's the third component.
That's so fascinating. And for our listeners and viewers who've just joined us, we've got Chris Wolfe with us today. He's the Senior Director of Environmental Sustainability at Bimbo Bakeries USA. To find Chris and all of his colleagues and all the important and impactful work they're doing in environmental sustainability, please go to www.bimbobakeriesusa.com. Talk a little bit about energy. Let's go back to energy again. And for 7 years in a row, you are US EPA's Energy Star Partner of the Year. You've won that award. And 19 of your North American facilities have earned the EPA Energy Star certifications. These are, for our listeners and viewers out there who don't know about Energy Star and level of difficulty, this is no easy feat. And this is something to be massively congratulated on. How do you pull off that level of success with regards to Energy Star and Energy Star awards and certifications, Chris?
Well, there's a lot of activities in there, but again, I want to go back to the most, our people are the biggest asset we have. So it's frontline engagement is where it all starts.
Yeah.
Specific to Energy Star, 7 consecutive years, we're the only dedicated food and bev company to ever win it. Which is amazing.
Yeah.
The bakeries that are certified. So to be a certified bakery, you got to be the best of the best. So you got to be 75% or greater when compared to our peers. So that's how those bakeries get certified. Again, most ever. I mean, we're continuing there. Now it fluctuates year over year, the numbers that we have. Great partnership with Energy Star. I got to give a plug to EPA. That's the right type of relationship you want to have. It's a partnership. It truly is a partnership. We learn from them. They learn from us. I think our Frederick facility was the first baker to ever get recognized. That's called their challenge program. So that's where you demonstrate at least a 10% reduction in your energy intensity within 5 years. And Frederick did it. I think it was well over a decade ago. I don't think it was 2012, maybe 2014. But that's when we started the journey with Energy Star. We're going to continue to support them Matter of fact, I'm speaking on it again next week. So big proponents of that. EPA has another program called the Green Power Partnership. We're on the top 100 list. And if you look at the list, there's some heavyweights on that list. So it's always nice to be on that list. That fluctuates. I think we're 39 on the top 100 list. And that's based on the amount of our electricity that's matched, as I discussed earlier. So just a couple plugs there. Again, we're very proud of those. And it's, again, like I said, I'm the spokesperson. There's so many people involved. I got a great team that works on that. I'd name them all by name, but that wouldn't be fair to everybody because I probably missed somebody. But again, and the leadership team, if we go to them with a project, in most cases, if we make a compelling case, they're gonna say yes. So you got the Energy Star. We talked about the microgrids. The other big thing, if you read I think it was last week, we just announced that we have a partnership with Harbinger on electrical vehicles.
Yeah,
That's a big that was a big one.
Yeah.
So I can't get into specifics like dollars and the number of vehicles. I can just say it's big, but again, it gives us the ability to go to market where it makes sense with a step van that is it runs on electric, and we're going to continue to expand that. We continue to leverage technology on our fleet side. So we define alternative vehicles as anything other than gasoline or diesel. So we have compressed natural gas, we have propane vehicles. Yes, they're fossil fuels, but they burn cleaner. Then you throw in hybrids, big proponent of hybrids. And then we also have the EVs. And then we're going to continue to look at technology as it advances. Someday, maybe it'll be hydrogen.
I want to talk about technology in a second. Talk a little bit about, though, reporting. The world, as we know it, has really got big into not only doing the great work that you do at Bimbo USA with your Bimbo Bakeries USA with your colleagues, but then the radical transparency that financial institutions, constituencies, and all those that are in people who enjoy and love your brands. Demand of now the reporting. Where do you guys report? Is there once a year an environmental impact report that comes out and it gets put up on your website? Where do you report on all these amazing achievements that you and your colleagues are doing at Bimbo Bakeries USA?
No, good question, John. So most of ours, the easiest way to find out what we're doing is our website, or you go to our annual report. So if you go to the Grupo Bimbo annual report, there's a huge section on sustainability.
Got it.
Of all the good work we're doing. We also have external, so CDP, GRI, these are reports that are tied to financials. They're also just tied to, we're putting them out there for the NGOs so that we know what our carbon footprint is and our impact. So they're two big ones. Consumers. So we'll talk about consumers. The consumer is more educated now about sustainability than they ever were. So they will pay more for sustainable products. It's very important to them.
That's right.
So that's the consumer. Associates, new hires, it's important to them to work for a company that has sustainability in their vision, in their mission. And then you come back to customers. So customers like the Walmarts, the Targets, the Costco, and so forth. It's extremely important to them. And they don't just look at it from, again, our main discussion today is the planet area.
Sure.
But they also look at it from a social standpoint. Is again, how do you treat your associates? And that's where diversity, equity, and belonging. We're big into community activities. We want to be a good neighbor. That's where that all comes into play.
You mentioned the employee part. That's really an important part in a post-COVID world where employee engagement is maybe more important than ever before. It's so many people in the next generation, Gen X, Gen Z, millennials even, want to not only make a paycheck now, they want to make a difference. So working for a company like Bimbo Bakeries, I'm sure it's a huge advantage over some of your competition to be able to say, hey, you're going to make a paycheck, but you're also going to make a difference. Here's why.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's recruiting and retention, I assume.
Yes, it is. Yep. And
if you look,
we historically rank very high, and we get awarded on that type of areas.
Talk a little bit about technology. We can't wake up any morning without, turning on TV and watching either Bloomberg or CNBC or reading the New York Times or Wall Street Journal and not reading about NVIDIA and AI and this whole, hype cycle that we're in with regards to AI. And I don't mean that negatively. I don't mean hype cycle as a derogation on what's going on, but it is. It's every day in the news. How is AI and other technologies, or robotics and automation, going to continue to help you in your journey with regards to environmental sustainability and making a company that's more sustainable and more resilient for not only today, but for the years ahead?
Yeah. So as far as technology go, our culture is we embrace it. And again, that starts with Danielle Cerviche and the senior leadership team. So they want us to embrace it.
Got it.
Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. But if you don't embrace it, we may miss out. Now, AI is part of what we have it. I can't get into the details, but we're leveraging AI.
Right.
But from a technology front, we need to always look at technology. I mean, the way we bake bread today, yes, it's in an oven, but the controls, the sophistication that we have in our ovens versus where they were 5-10 years ago has taken a giant leap. We have the equipment manufacturers that, they work hand in hand with us. So we're leveraging that. Then if you look at the fleet and the logistics side of things, the miles that we can go, even if you're talking conventional gas and diesel today versus where they were, much more efficient. They're much more efficient on the back end as far as controlling the what comes off the exhaust. And then we're continuing to look at alternatives. I mean, everybody wants to talk electric, which we do electric where it makes sense. Hybrids out there. Where's it going in the future? It could be combination electric, hydrogen. We don't. And then back to the bakery. So all of our bakery ovens, natural gas. Natural gas is a very clean fuel. I recognize it's a fossil fuel, but it's not all fossil fuels are equal. So we have natural gas ovens, but the future might be a hybrid where we use natural gas and electric in our ovens, and then eventually maybe hydrogen. And then here's the thing is, we don't know what the future is. There's some bright person out there that's going to develop technology that I hope there's a huge leap in the next 5 years, and we'll embrace it and we'll go from there.
Chris, Bimbo Bakeries, as we said at the top of the show, has 20,000 plus employees. This is the largest bakery in the planet, and you're doing business in 35 or more countries. Talk a little bit about your colleagues, your counterparts around the world. How often are you communicating with and sharing best practices with your counterparts across the planet in environmental sustainability and other issues that affect you today, and also keep you all looking with a horizon on the future?
So we get together at least once a year.
Wow.
I actually had the pleasure to go to Bogota, Colombia. That's who hosted it this year.
Wow.
So cross-functional value chain, everybody, well represented. So once a year they try to do a meeting that's strictly focused on sustainability. When I say sustainability, it includes that whole ESG package of the product, the people, and the planet. So that occurred in April. Then we have virtual meetings. We communicate on WhatsApp. I have peers that I can leverage because, if I'm dealing with an issue or an opportunity, there's somebody else in this great organization that may have faced it already, and we share best practices. Now, each region's a little bit different. They have different challenges from region to region, but we have great communication. We get great support. When you're in as many countries as we are, we're all at different levels. So again, it's just one great family. And like we like to say, it's one Bimbo.
Got it. Outside of your own company, Chris, where do you find inspiration and aspiration with regards to what other brands are doing and what other leaders are doing in environmental sustainability? What other industries do you look to keep your curiosity alive and well and kicking as you look to new technologies and new opportunities to continually improve Bimbo Bakeries USA?
It's kind of diversified. We look at other food companies, we look at other CPG companies, obviously, and we benchmark.
Right.
But sometimes it's good to go outside the food.
Right.
What's the auto industry doing, and
Right.
what's the tech industry doing? And speaking of the tech industry, we do have a conduit to Silicon Valley. We have some friends there that keep us posted on some of the technologies that's pushing through, emerging technology, all kinds of stuff. So again, when we have access to resources that some others don't, and we leverage those. But again, I wouldn't say we look at one. We just kind of spread the net and go from there.
Well, people have heard me say this numerous times before on the show, but I get to say this after 17 years of doing a couple thousand of these shows. You belong to what I think of one of the coolest fraternities of leaders, corporate leaders in the world. The chief sustainability officers, the directors of environmental sustainability. I find it to be, even in the same industry, a group that, even though maybe even competitive sometimes, very sharing of information and helping one another to basically improve the journey and make it better for everybody.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing, John, that you may or may not know, but our new CEO, Ralph Palmas, that was just announced, he was our chief sustainability officer. And now he's our CEO.
Is this a big in that way, Chris? Are you telling me you're a direct line to be the next after him to be the next?
Oh, no. But no,
we rarely get to do breaking news on this show. This might be breaking news, Chris.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not. The link's not that close, but he's exceptional. So that awesome. Was announced. So that was announced last month. But that's great. That's pretty cool when he did more than just obviously he was more than just this chief sustainability officer. Very dynamic. He's got some big shoes to fill in Danielle Cerviche, but Danielle's still around. He's very passionate. He's not going away. But I just want to throw that out. You were talking a little bit about chief sustainability officers, and our new CEO, Ralph Palmas. Again, he was our chief sustainability officer. Now he's our CEO.
Well, let me share this with you. So today is June. We're taping the show on June 3rd, 2024. Do you know that the new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, first female president, what her profession is? She's an environmental scientist.
Yep.
So there's something in the air here, Chris. Yeah. You might be running for U.S. Senator or something soon in Pennsylvania, because seriously, all kidding aside, I'm so glad you shared what you shared, because listen, is there an issue that Congress or the Senate, I mean, of course, there's hundreds of important issues, but there's really nothing to talk about if we don't get on the ball here and decarbonize this planet and heal the planet from all the industrial revolution and pre-industrial revolution harms that we did to this planet, including current harms that still get to be done. I mean, there's nothing else to talk about. So it's a baseline issue, the cleaner water, cleaner air, better environment and everything else. So it's being recognized. People are voting not only with their pocketbooks, but with their actual votes.
Yeah. And I'll try to stay out of the politics. I think that the biggest, if we could correct something, it would be, when it comes to energy or environmental policy, it can't be pocketed 4-year terms, 8-year terms. That's part of the problem.
That's true.
It changes with each administration. If we'd all sit in a room and come up with a 40-year, 50-year energy plan, most people would be happy with it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with the way the current setting is, that's not going to happen. But we can try to push. We can kind of try to push the envelope, get it to change. But again, we only have one planet. We can do it in a way that makes sense financially and also to save the planet. Like I said earlier on, I mean, you can you can embrace sustainability and at the same time be mindful of the economic impact as well.
I don't want to brush over what you brought up earlier. It's really important. What you've created at the Arnold Bread with regards to the first bread bag that uses 30% post-consumer recycled plastic and content in it.
Yep.
How difficult was that lift, number one? And do you believe, again, since you're an embracer of technology as a brand goes, that you're open to all new technologies, do you believe we'll be able to keep improving on that in the years ahead?
Yeah, that's going to continue to expand. And again, at Bimbo, we're very fortunate. We have sustainable packaging engineers. We got marketers. We got procurement involved. We have the actual bag manufacturers that are engaged in it. As the supply continues to increase with the availability for that type of plastic, you're going to see that PCR is going to expand. You're already seeing it. There's more of a push on the rigid plastic side versus the plastic that we deal with. But I would expect that within 5 to 10 years that most plastics that are out there are going to have a certain percentage of it. It's the right thing to do. Technology is pushing it to the point where it's viable. And if you have all that material that's being recycled out there, why wouldn't you want to use it?
Agreed. I'm with you. Chris, this has just been a delight. I'm so grateful for your time today and for our listeners and viewers. If you want to find Chris Wolfe and his colleagues and all the important and impactful work they're doing in environmental sustainability, please go to www.bimbobakeriesusa.com. Chris, I not only want you back, but I would love to have your colleagues on to talk about the other different divisions you guys are working on with regards to your journeys in terms of Bake for You, Bake for Life. Obviously, you covered today Bake for Nature. Not only am I grateful for the time you spent with us today on the Impact Podcast, but I'm really grateful to you and your colleagues, all of your colleagues, 20,000 plus at Bimbo Bakeries, for nourishing a better world and making the world a better and more sustainable place.
Appreciate the opportunity, John. And again, I want to reach out to all of our associates. They make everything we do happens because of our associates, and again, because we get all the support from our leadership team. So thanks to all.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.